Malik Jennings woke up early that Saturday morning, just like he always did. The sun was still low in the sky, and a soft golden light filled his small apartment. He stretched his arms and smiled. Today was a special day. His son, Andre, had a soccer game. Malik loved watching Andre play. It was their time together, their way to connect. He got dressed in his usual clothes, a simple navy windbreaker and blue jeans. His hair was still short, neatly trimmed, and his face showed the calm strength that came from years of discipline. Malik had been a Navy commander before retiring, but he rarely talked about it. To him, family was more important than rank or medals. In the kitchen, Andre was already eating breakfast, his face full of excitement. "Dad, are you coming to watch the game?" he asked, his eyes wide. Malik nodded and ruffled Andre's hair. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, son." Andre smiled, his small hands eagerly finishing the last bites of his cereal. Malik packed a small bag with water bottles, snacks, and Andre's spare jersey. The two of them left the apartment, stepping out into the fresh morning air. The neighborhood was waking up slowly. Birds chirped softly, and the distant hum of traffic made a steady rhythm. Malik and Andre walked hand in hand to the nearby soccer field, a green patch surrounded by tall trees and a few benches where parents usually sat during games. The field was already buzzing with life. Kids in bright jerseys ran across the grass, shouting and laughing. Parents stood at the sidelines, chatting and cheering. Malik spotted Andre's team warming up, and his heart swelled with pride. "Ready, Dad?" Andre asked, bouncing on his toes. "Always," Malik said with a grin. They found a spot near the middle of the field where Malik could see everything. He sat down on a bench and watched as the players lined up. Andre wore number 7 on his back, a number he chose because it was his favorite player's. The whistle blew, and the game began. Malik clapped and shouted encouragement. "Go, Andre. Run, son." Andre sprinted down the field, chasing the ball with determination. Malik's eyes never left him. It wasn't just a game to Malik. It was a chance to show Andre that he was proud, that he believed in him. But not everyone on the sidelines shared Malik's joy. Across the field, a man in a baseball cap frowned as he watched Malik cheer. He whispered something to a woman beside him, and she nodded, her eyes narrowing. Malik noticed but said nothing. He had learned a long time ago that some people judge too quickly. As the game continued, Malik's cheering grew louder. Andre passed the ball well, made a good shot, and even scored a goal. The crowd clapped, and Malik's smile grew wide. Andre looked toward his father and gave a small thumbs up. Then, just as Malik was about to stand and cheer louder, a woman approached him. She wore a bright yellow vest with the words "Field Supervisor" printed on the back. Her face was polite but serious. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "We've had a complaint. I'm going to need you to step away from the field." Malik blinked, surprised. "A complaint? About me?" She nodded. "Yes, it's best if you take a break on the sidelines for a little while." Malik looked around, then back at Andre, who was now watching anxiously. Malik stood slowly, trying to stay calm. "All right," he said. "I'll step back for now." He moved away from the bench, feeling the eyes of many parents on him. Some avoided looking, others stared openly. Andre ran over to him. "Dad, what's going on?" he whispered. Malik bent down and put a hand on Andre's shoulder. "Nothing to worry about, son. Just wait right here, okay? I'll be back soon." Andre nodded but looked confused. Malik sat down on a bench farther away, his heart heavy. He looked at the field where his son was still playing, but he felt far away. The game continued, but the joy in Malik's chest dimmed a little. Around him, conversations hummed quietly, but Malik could sense the tension. People whispered about who he was and why he had to leave. Some thought he was causing trouble, others were unsure. Malik knew the truth. Sometimes, no matter how much you try, people see what they want to see. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn photograph of his family, his wife, his 2 kids, and himself in his Navy uniform. He stared at it for a moment, drawing strength from the faces smiling back at him. Malik wasn't angry. He was tired. Tired of the misunderstandings, the judgments, the silence that followed. But above all, he was proud. Proud of Andre, who played like a champion despite everything. Proud of himself, for never giving up. And proud of the promise he had made to always be there for his son. The whistle blew again, signaling a timeout. Malik stood and looked toward Andre, who was catching his breath with teammates. He smiled, wiped a small tear from his eye, and whispered, "Keep going, son. I'm right here." And at that moment, something inside Malik shifted. He knew this day was far from over and soon, everything would change. Malik sat on the bench, his eyes fixed on the field, but his mind far away. The sounds of the game, shouts, whistles, and cheers felt distant. He could see Andre running with the ball, dodging other kids, but something had changed. The energy between them, the invisible thread that held them together during these games, seemed strained. The woman in the yellow vest, the field supervisor, stood nearby, watching him carefully. She seemed unsure, as if waiting for instructions or approval from someone else. Malik noticed her glance at her phone, then back to him. A few other parents were whispering, casting quick glances in his direction. Their voices were low, but the tone was clear: suspicion. Malik knew why. He had been through this before, many times. People looking at him not as a father, not as a man, but as a stranger. Someone out of place. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. This was not the moment to lose control. Andre needed him to stay strong. Suddenly, a young man in a coach's uniform approached. Coach Stevens was a friendly face Malik had seen at many games. He smiled warmly. "Hey Malik," the coach said quietly, "is everything okay?" Malik nodded slowly. "Just being asked to step back." "Some kind of complaint?" Coach Stevens frowned. "That's strange. You've never caused any trouble here." "I know," Malik said, watching Andre sprint past on the field, "but sometimes people see things differently." Coach Stevens looked around, then lowered his voice. "If you want, I can check what this is all about." Before Malik could reply, the woman in the yellow vest came over again. "Sir, I'm sorry, but we really need you to leave the immediate area," she said softly but firmly. "It's for the safety of all the kids." Malik stood up slowly, glancing once more at Andre. The boy's eyes searched the sidelines, looking for his father's support. Malik walked away from the field, toward the parking lot. His footsteps were steady, but his heart felt heavy. The grass underfoot, usually soft and green, now seemed cold and distant. He stopped beside his car, pulled out his phone, and stared at it for a moment. Then, without making a call, he slipped the device back into his pocket. Andre finished his game but looked distracted. The boy's usual energy was missing. Every time the ball came near him, he glanced at the sidelines, hoping to see his father. Malik watched from a distance, his eyes never leaving Andre. He wanted to shout, to wave, to tell him everything would be all right. But the rules kept him silent, like a shadow forced to stay in the dark. Minutes passed. The game slowed. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the field. Suddenly, a few parents began to talk louder. Some seemed angry. "Why did they ask Malik to leave?" one mother whispered. "He wasn't bothering anyone." Another parent shook his head. "It's probably nothing, but they wouldn't do that without a reason. Malik felt the weight of their words. They didn't know him, didn't understand. But in this moment, he didn't need them to. He reached into his jacket and took out a small notebook. Inside were notes, things he had learned during his years in the Navy. Discipline. Respect. Patience. He flipped to a page where he had written a quote, "The greatest battles are not fought on the outside but within." Malik smiled faintly. This was one of those battles. Then, as if on cue, the sound of a helicopter filled the air. At first, it was distant, a soft thumping growing louder by the second. People stopped talking and looked up. Malik's eyes narrowed. He recognized the sound immediately. It was familiar, a sound from his past, a sound that could change everything. The helicopter came closer, its blades spinning fast. Dust swirled around the edges of the field. Children stopped playing, and parents shielded their eyes from the flying dirt. Malik stood up, his heart pounding. The field supervisor looked uneasy, speaking quickly into her radio. The helicopter circled once, then began to descend onto the open field nearby. It was a Navy helicopter, sleek, powerful, and unmistakable. Parents gasped. Some pulled out their phones, others just stared. Coach Stevens walked over to Malik, his face a mixture of surprise and confusion. "What's happening?" Malik took a deep breath. "I don't know yet." The helicopter landed smoothly despite the dusty wind. The ramp lowered, and two Navy officers in uniform stepped out, their faces serious. The crowd parted as the officers walked directly toward Malik. The field supervisor stepped aside, watching silently. One of the officers stopped in front of Malik and saluted sharply. Malik returned the salute, his posture straight and proud. The other officer spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Commander Malik Jennings, you are needed for an urgent Navy operation." The crowd was silent for a moment. Then whispers spread like wildfire. "Commander Jennings. That's him." Malik looked around, his face calm but firm. Andre ran up to him, eyes wide with wonder. Malik smiled and knelt down. "Son," he said softly, "I have to go now, but I promise I'll be back soon." Andre nodded, his small hands gripping his father's jacket. "Be safe, Dad." Malik stood up, gave Andre a final nod, then turned toward the helicopter. Before climbing aboard, he looked back once more. The field was filled with stunned faces, but his eyes found Andre's. With a final salute, Malik stepped into the helicopter, which lifted off smoothly into the sky. As the helicopter disappeared into the distance, the crowd slowly began to speak again. Coach Stevens put a hand on Andre's shoulder. "Your dad is a hero, son. Never forget that." Andre looked up, tears shining in his eyes. "I know, Coach. I know." Malik, high above the soccer field, felt the weight of many things: the judgment, the pride, the love. But most of all, he felt hope. Hope for his son. Hope for a future where people saw him not just as a stranger, but as a father, a commander, a man. And hope that one day, the world would understand. The helicopter disappeared into the bright blue sky, leaving behind a small cloud of dust and a crowd still filled with questions. Malik stood quietly by the side of the soccer field, the Navy officers gone, the noise of the game slowly returning, but inside, his mind was far from calm. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. The cover was soft from years of use. Inside, the pages were filled with notes, reminders, and sketches, small pieces of his life carefully recorded. Malik had always been a man of discipline, a man who prepared for every possibility, even when life was unpredictable. But today was different. The moments on the field, the suspicious looks, the whispered complaints, the request to leave had left a mark deeper than anyone could see. Malik had trained his whole life to be strong, to stay calm, to carry his responsibilities with honor. Yet, now, he felt the familiar weight of being judged unfairly, of being misunderstood. He closed the notebook and took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. Around him, the field buzzed with activity. Kids were running, coaches shouted encouragement, and parents cheered loudly. But Malik felt separate, like he was watching the world through a glass wall. His son, Andre, ran past him, chasing the ball with a smile that refused to fade. Malik watched his son's energy and felt a surge of pride mixed with pain. Andre did not deserve to see his father treated this way. He deserved better. Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out carefully, looking at the screen. It was a message from an old Navy contact. The message was short, simple, and clear: "Situation is urgent. Be ready." Malik nodded to himself. It was time. He stood and walked toward his car, blending into the crowd. No one questioned him now. The moment had passed, replaced by the excitement of the game. In the quiet of the parking lot, Malik pulled out a satellite phone. Unlike regular phones, this device was built to work anywhere in the world, even in places without cell towers. Malik pressed a few buttons and spoke quietly into the receiver. "This is Commander Jennings. Ready for assignment." A calm voice replied, giving details he had expected. An emergency situation required his expertise. Malik listened carefully, memorizing the instructions. After the call ended, Malik slipped the phone back into his jacket. He stood for a moment, looking around. The neighborhood was peaceful, the sounds of children playing drifting through the air. It was the life he loved, the life he fought to protect. But the world was not always peaceful. Malik thought about his years in the Navy, the long deployments, the difficult decisions, the times he had to leave his family behind. He had done it all because he believed in something greater than himself. But even then, he had never forgotten what mattered most: his son. A soft breeze stirred the leaves around him. Malik's eyes narrowed as he remembered the promise he made to Andre to always be there, to protect him, to show him how to be strong and kind. He took a deep breath and walked back toward the soccer field. Andre was still playing, his face glowing with happiness despite the earlier confusion. Malik smiled and called out, "Keep playing, son. I'm proud of you." Andre turned and waved, his face lighting up. But Malik knew the next few days would be hard. He had to leave again, this time for an important mission. It was his duty, but it also meant more time away from his family. As he sat on the bench again, Malik's phone buzzed once more. This time, it was a text from Andre's school teacher. "Andre is doing well but misses you. He asked if you could visit soon." Malik's heart tightened. He wished he could be there more often. He typed a quick reply, "I'll be home soon, son. Stay strong." The game ended, and families began to gather their things. Malik helped Andre pick up his gear, his hands steady despite the emotions inside. "Dad," Andre said quietly, "why did you have to leave the field today?" Malik looked down at his son and smiled gently. "Sometimes, people don't understand right away. But that's okay. What matters is that you keep being you." Andre nodded, but Malik saw the confusion in his eyes. He reached out and hugged his son tightly. "I'm proud of you, Andre. You're brave." Andre smiled shyly, resting his head on Malik's shoulder. As they walked toward the car, Malik felt the weight of his responsibilities pressing down, but also the strength that came from love and hope. The world might not always be kind, but Malik knew he would always fight for his son, for his family, and for the future they dreamed of. After the helicopter lifted off and disappeared into the sky, the soccer field slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Children ran and laughed, chasing the ball with energy, and parents cheered on from the sidelines. Yet, an invisible tension lingered in the air, like a quiet storm just beneath the surface. Andre sat quietly on the bench, his small hands wrapped tightly around his water bottle. His eyes kept darting toward the spot where Malik had been sitting before he was asked to leave. The boy's smile was faint, and his usual excitement seemed to have been replaced with confusion. Coach Stevens noticed Andre's change right away. The coach, a kind man with a gentle voice, walked over and sat beside the boy. "Hey, Andre," he said softly. "Everything okay?" Andre hesitated before answering. "My dad had to leave. The lady said he had to go." Coach Stevens nodded, understanding more than the boy said. "Sometimes grown ups have rules that are hard to understand. But your dad's always been a good man. You know that, right?" Andre looked up at the coach, a small spark of hope in his eyes. "Yeah, I know." Meanwhile, whispers spread among the parents on the sidelines. Some talked quietly to one another, their voices low but urgent. "Did you see that? Why did they tell Malik to leave? I heard someone called security. That can't be right. He was just watching his son. Maybe it was a mistake. Or maybe there's more to the story." No one had the full picture, and the lack of answers only made the rumors grow. Some parents exchanged worried looks. Others seemed uncomfortable, unsure of what to think. Malik stood apart from the group, watching from a distance. He felt the weight of those whispers like a heavy cloud pressing down on him. Yet, he remained calm, steady. He understood that sometimes, fear and misunderstanding could make people jump to conclusions. It was part of the world he lived in, a world where appearances could be deceiving. Still, the pain of being watched and judged never got easier. As the game went on, Malik's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an old friend in the Navy. "Situation developing fast. Be prepared." Malik took a deep breath and typed back, "Understood. We'll be ready." He folded his arms and looked at the kids playing soccer, their laughter ringing through the air. He thought about Andre, about how he wanted his son to grow up in a world that saw him for who he really was, not for the color of his skin or any assumptions people might make. A few of the parents began approaching Malik cautiously. One woman stepped forward, her expression uncertain. "I'm sorry for what happened earlier," she said quietly. "I don't know why they asked you to leave." Malik gave a small nod. "Thank you. It's okay." Another parent, a man with a gentle smile, spoke up. "You're welcome here anytime. Andre's lucky to have a dad who cares so much." Malik smiled warmly. "Andre is lucky to have so many good people around him." The small moments of kindness helped ease some of the tension, but Malik knew the deeper challenge was still ahead. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the field, Malik's thoughts turned to the future. He looked at Andre again and felt a mixture of pride and determination. His son was growing up strong, but there were lessons to be learned, not just about soccer or school, but about the world. Lessons about courage, about standing tall even when others doubt you. Lessons about kindness and patience. And above all, lessons about love. The game ended, and families began to pack up. Malik walked over to Andre and wrapped his arm around the boy's shoulders. "Ready to go home?" Malik asked gently. Andre nodded, resting his head against his father's side. As they walked to the car, Malik felt the quiet strength of their bond, a bond that could not be broken by whispers or doubts. They climbed into the car, and Malik started the engine. The hum of the city surrounded them, but inside the vehicle, it was just father and son, safe and together. On the drive home, Malik's phone buzzed once more. This time, it was an official message from the Navy Command. "Immediate deployment confirmed. Report to base within 24 hours." Malik's jaw tightened. Duty called again, pulling him away from his family. He glanced at Andre in the rearview mirror. The boy was watching him, sensing something important. Malik reached back and gave Andrei's knee a gentle squeeze. "I'll be back soon, son," he promised. Andrei smiled, a little stronger this time. "I know, Dad." That night, Malik sat at the kitchen table, quietly packing a bag. Each item was folded carefully: a uniform, essential gear, and a small photo of his family tucked inside his wallet. His wife, Nina, watched him silently. She knew the weight he carried: the weight of service, the weight of being a father, and the weight of a world that didn't always see him clearly. She walked over and took his hand. "We'll be here when you come back," she said softly. Malik nodded, grateful for her steady presence. As he finished packing, Malik thought about the helicopter that had landed on the soccer field just hours ago, a symbol of his past, his present, and his future. He thought about the whispered doubts and the quiet strength it took to rise above them. And he thought about Andrei, the boy who was growing up in a world full of challenges but also full of hope. Malik stood, ready for whatever came next. Because no matter what, he knew who he was. A father. A commander. A man who would never stop fighting for the people he loved. The next morning arrived quietly. Malik sat at the kitchen table, staring at a steaming cup of coffee. The soft morning light spilled through the window, but inside Malik, a storm was quietly building. He felt the pull of two worlds: the family he loved and the duty he had sworn to serve. Andrei was in the other room, playing with his toy cars. Malik could hear the little sounds of engines and laughter. He smiled softly, but his heart tightened. He knew he had to leave soon, and the thought of being apart from his son again made the room feel heavy. Nina entered the kitchen, her eyes kind but tired. "Have you packed everything you need?" she asked gently. Malik nodded. "Almost. I want to spend some time with Andrei before I go." Nina sat beside him. "He'll understand, Malik. He loves you very much." Malik looked down and nodded. "I hope so." He reached for his phone and called the school. He wanted to make sure Andrei's teacher knew what was happening. The woman who answered was warm and understanding. "We'll support Andrei while you're away," she promised. "If you want, I can keep you updated." Malik felt relief wash over him. Knowing his son was cared for made the separation easier to bear. After the call, Malik went to Andrei's room. The boy looked up with wide eyes. "Dad," Andrei said softly, "are you going away?" Malik knelt down and took his son's small hands in his own. "Yes, son. I have to help people far away. But I'll be back as soon as I can." Andrei's face scrunched up, a mix of sadness and bravery. "Will you be safe?" Malik smiled gently. "I'll do everything I can to be safe. And I'll be thinking about you every day." Andrei nodded slowly. "Promise me you'll come back." "I promise," Malik said firmly. That afternoon, Malik helped Andrei with his homework. They laughed over a tricky math problem, and Malik was reminded how important these moments were. The phone rang suddenly, and Malik answered. It was the Navy command, calling with the final details of the mission. "Commander Jennings," the voice said, "your deployment orders have been confirmed. Report to base within 12 hours. Malik closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. "Yes, sir." "Understood." He ended the call and looked at Nina, who was waiting patiently in the living room. "I have to leave soon," he said quietly. Nina nodded. "We'll be here. Andrei will be waiting for you." That evening, Malik and Nina took Andrei to the park. The boy ran freely on the grass, chasing after pigeons and laughing. Malik watched, his heart aching but filled with pride. Later, as they sat on a bench, Malik held Andrei close. "Remember, son," Malik said softly, "no matter where I am, I'm always with you." Andrei hugged his father tightly. "I'll be brave." The next morning was filled with preparation. Malik packed his bags one last time and said goodbye to Nina with a long, quiet embrace. Andre hugged his father tightly, holding on as if to keep him there forever. "Be safe, Dad," Andre whispered. "I will," Malik promised. At the base, Malik's old Navy team greeted him. The familiar uniforms and sounds brought back memories of past missions, of sacrifices made. The mission was clear but dangerous. Malik would be part of a special team sent to help in an area affected by a natural disaster. His experience and leadership were needed to coordinate rescue efforts and provide aid. As Malik boarded the plane, he thought of Andre and Nina. He thought of the soccer field, the quiet moments before the storm. And he promised himself that no matter what happened, he would return to them. The plane lifted off, and Malik looked out the window. The city faded beneath the clouds, but his heart stayed firmly grounded. For family. For duty. For hope. The plane shook slightly as it flew through thick clouds. Malik sat with the other members of his team, their faces calm but focused. The air was heavy with tension, and outside the window, the stormy skies showed signs of the disaster awaiting them below. Malik's thoughts drifted to his family back home, Nina and Andre. He pictured Andre's bright eyes and fearless smile, the way his son always believed in him no matter what. That thought gave Malik strength. He knew that every mission carried risks, but he also knew why he had to be strong. The team leader spoke quietly, explaining their plan. They were heading to a coastal town hit hard by a hurricane. Homes were flooded, people trapped, and supplies were running low. Malik's role was to help coordinate rescue efforts and bring relief to the victims. As the plane began its descent, the team prepared their gear. The hum of the engines was loud, but Malik's mind was clear. Every detail mattered. When they landed, the scene was chaotic. Streets were flooded with water and debris. Trees lay uprooted, and buildings showed the scars of powerful winds. The air smelled of wet earth and salt. Malik stepped off the plane and took a deep breath. This was what he had trained for, helping in the hardest moments, when people needed hope the most. He immediately began organizing the teams. Rescue workers moved quickly, carrying supplies and helping those trapped in their homes. Malik directed operations with calm authority, his voice steady even as the storm raged on. Hours passed like minutes. Malik checked on the teams, listened to reports, and adjusted plans. He worked alongside people from different places and backgrounds, all united by the desire to help. At one point, Malik found himself helping a mother and her 2 children stranded in a flooded house. The mother's eyes were full of fear, but Malik's steady hands and kind words helped calm her. "We're here to help," he said softly. "You'll be safe soon." The children clung to their mother, but Malik's calm presence gave them hope. That night, as the team set up a temporary shelter, Malik took a moment to write a quick message to Nina. "Safe for now. Working hard. Thinking of you and Andre." He sent the message and looked up at the sky. The storm had passed, but its damage was clear. The next days were filled with tireless work repairing power lines, distributing food and water, and helping families rebuild what was lost. Malik's team worked from sunrise to sunset, driven by determination and compassion. Despite the exhaustion, Malik never lost sight of why he was there. He was fighting not just against the storm's destruction but against the fear and hopelessness it brought. Each rescued family, each grateful smile, was a reminder of the strength of the human spirit. One evening, as Malik rested briefly, a young boy approached him. "Are you a hero?" the boy asked, eyes wide. Malik smiled gently. "I'm just someone trying to help." The boy nodded thoughtfully. "I want to help too someday." Malik placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You will. Always listen to your heart and be kind." That night, Malik dreamt of Andre's soccer game, the bright field, the cheers, the look on his son's face when Malik waved from the sidelines. He woke with a start, the memory sharp and warm. Even in the middle of a disaster zone, family was never far from his mind. As the mission neared its end, Malik's phone buzzed again. A message from Nina. Andre misses you. So do I. Stay safe. Malik typed back quickly, I'll be home soon. Love you both. He looked around at the faces of those they had helped, tired, but hopeful. This was the reward for all their hard work. Finally, the day came to leave. Malik packed his gear and said goodbye to the team. As the helicopter lifted off, carrying him away from the devastated town, Malik felt a deep sense of accomplishment mixed with longing. The journey home was quiet, filled with reflection. Malik knew there would be challenges waiting for him back in his own life, but he also knew he was ready. Because no matter the storms he faced outside or inside, he carried with him the love of his family and the strength of his own heart. The sun was just beginning to rise when Malik's plane touched down. The familiar hum of the engines filled the quiet morning air. As the wheels rolled onto the runway, Malik's heart beat faster. After days away, after all the storms and struggles, he was finally going home. He thought about Nina and Andre, waiting for him. He imagined Andre's excited face and Nina's warm smile. He longed to hold them close, to feel the peace of home after so much chaos. Inside the airport, Malik walked steadily, his uniform crisp and his steps sure. The world around him moved quickly, people rushing, announcements over loudspeakers, but for Malik, time seemed to slow. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Nina, we can't wait to see you. Andre is counting the minutes. Malik smiled softly, replying, coming soon, my heroes. Outside, waiting near the parking lot, stood Nina and Andre. Andre's eyes lit up the moment he saw his father. He ran forward, arms wide open. Dad, he shouted, wrapping Malik in a tight hug. Malik lifted Andre off the ground, holding him close. I missed you, son. Nina stepped forward, her eyes shining. Welcome home, Malik. For a moment, the world outside didn't matter. There was only family, their safe place. Back at their house, the small moments returned, the sound of laughter, the smell of dinner cooking, the quiet peace of simply being together. Malik watched Andre practice his soccer moves in the backyard. The boy's joy was contagious, and Malik felt a deep sense of pride. That night, as Andre slept peacefully in his bed, Malik and Nina sat quietly together. It's been a long journey, Nina said softly. Malik nodded. It has. But being home makes it all worth it. They talked about the challenges Malik had faced during the mission and the unfair moments on the soccer field, the looks, the whispers, the time he was told to leave. It's not just about the mission or the work, Malik said. It's about showing Andre what strength really means. Nina smiled. He sees it every day. Malik reached into his pocket and pulled out the small, worn notebook he carried with him. He flipped through the pages, notes, drawings, reminders of moments both big and small. This, Malik said, is my story. The story I want Andre to know. They spoke long into the night, sharing hopes and dreams for their family's future. Days passed, and the community began to talk not just about the disaster, but about Malik's courage and kindness. Slowly, the whispers on the soccer field changed. People who had doubted began to understand. Parents approached Malik, thanking him for his service and his example. One afternoon, at Andre's next soccer game, Malik sat proudly on the sidelines. This time, there were no suspicious glances. Instead, there were smiles and nods of respect. Andre scored a goal, and Malik cheered louder than anyone. The crowd applauded, and Malik felt a warm glow inside. As the game ended, Coach Stevens came over and shook Malik's hand. You're welcome here anytime, the coach said. Andre's lucky to have you. Malik smiled. Thank you. We're lucky to have this community. Walking home, Malik thought about everything he had been through, the challenges, the doubts, the strength found in love. He knew there would be more storms ahead. But now, he felt ready. Because he was not alone. He had Nina, Andre, and a community that was beginning to see him for who he truly was. And most importantly, he had hope. Standing on the porch of his home, Malik looked up at the stars. The sky was vast and clear, a new night full of promise. He whispered quietly, "We're going to be okay." And with that, Malik stepped inside, where love waited, strong and steady as ever.